Let's kick it off. First of all is Kaori Hashimoto and Margaret Valere are going to talk about their trip to Grand Canyon in one day across rim to rim. And I have bios for everybody here, so I don't have Margaret's, but I do have I do have Kaori's. And Kaori's taking the pictures in this trip. So they're going to double team this, but Kaori was born and educated in Japan, immigrated to California in 1988, and after raising 2 kids, moved to Tucson with photo collector and historian husband in 2016. They work with a vast collection of vintage photography from the first half of the 20th century. She's been a professional Japanese interpreter for several decades and is certified Japanese court interpreter, going to Phoenix for court cases often. She started serious hiking only after coming to SaddleBrooke and joining the club, and now is a really good hiker. So take it away, ladies.
Rim to rim in one day. It was my idea completely. On the 22nd of September, I was doing a triathlon in Tri-Cities, Washington State, and I said to my husband, well, let's just drive another 15 hours and we'll get to the North Rim. Fortunately, I had an eager participant that would come with me. So this is our trip.
It was one of my dreams to do the bottom of Grand Canyon. I've visited Grand Canyon many times, but never to the bottom. So I had opportunities, but never been able to. And when Margaret said, do you want to do it? I said, sure. So our date was set September 26th because she was coming down from Canada and doing the triathlon. And so there we go. So what we did was the typical North Kaibab trail down to the river and up the Bright Angel Trail, and it's 23.9 miles. And what makes it difficult is that it's 5781, some say 5734, but elevation from North Kaibab, you go down that for 14 miles, and then you get to the bottom, and the difficult part is that you have to get up after this 14 miles, and that's 4,400 feet elevation gain. I was confident I can do it, but the problem was September 26th, the heat and the availability of water, it was uncertain. And 2024 was, as you know, one of the warmest, globally, it was the warmest year. And in Grand Canyon, it's one of the 3rd warmest. And I was obsessively looking at the temperature at the Phantom Ranch to see if it's over 105 or so, we're not going to do it. So there are so many information available hiking in Grand Canyon, so I'll just go through this very quickly. One of the National Park Service sites would have this hiking into Grand Canyon. Actually, this is actually a pamphlet, hiking into Grand Canyon. And it has a nice map on the back, and I really studied this very carefully. What are the landmarks? And they always say it's optional to hike into Grand Canyon, but it's mandatory to get out. So you can see trailhead is about 8241 at North Kaibab Trail, and you have 14 miles to go down 5734 feet or so, and then up. And the red part, it says seek advice. So that's only for really seasoned hikers, and especially if you're doing it in the heat, you have a risk of having heat stroke, all kinds of things. So I was carefully monitoring the temperature and training so that I don't get exhausted. And I was in Tucson all summer, so I did some hiking in the heat or strenuous hikes in the Santa Ritas or Mount Lemmon and trained for it. And you know Margaret, you got to catch up with her. And she's in top shape, so I really had to train myself.
In fact, Kaori is a very strong hiker, and she hiked here in the summer, and I hadn't hiked since April after leaving here, so it was a challenge. Not so much the hiking up, it was the going down that was a real challenge. This shows as an excellent slide. It's a drive from one rim to the other. It's 212-mile drive. A straight line distance, rim to rim, is 10 miles. I and Francois arrived in the North Rim on the Wednesday evening, and Kaori, in fact, had to take the shuttle from the South Rim to the North.
And I said, 11 miles? Oh, in 4 hours, 5 hours? Oh, that's going to be too long. But anyway, it was a delightful trip. I took the 8 a.m. shuttle, and accommodates 14 hikers, and I exchanged a lot of good information. And this driver was very knowledgeable about the geology and the whole area, and we stopped at the Navajo Bridge in Marble Canyon. It was a gorgeous day, and he pointed out there are some California condors, and sure enough, 3 or 4 of them. And the one on the lower right I took with a zoom, but there they were. And this is the North Rim, and I've never been to the North Rim, and it was beautiful. Just gorgeous evening. And I was so excited. Oh, we're going to go down that layer of rocks and 2 billion years of formation in one morning. I was so excited.
This is the morning of. We were dropped to the trailhead at 4:30 in the morning to start our hike. And all you see is a line of headlamps, which we scurried by and wondered. I said they're going to have to pick up the pace if they're doing rim to rim. But it was delightful starting down. We didn't actually see that part of the trail because it was pitch dark. But here, the slide right beside that is me, and we're just coming into daylight.
And that waterfall is the Roaring Springs, the source of the Trans Canyon water. It serves both the South Rim and North Rim. And it was so beautiful after being in the dark for 2 hours and coming down into that. And the beautiful clouds, it was just beautiful. And a lot of flowers still. We don't need any words. Okay, so this is the first glimpse of the one on the right is, you could see the South Rim in the distance, and that's where we're going. Yeah. And the facilities are so well kept and nice and very pleasant. First stop was Manzanita Rest House, and we saw some of the other rim-to-rim hikers there. And the one on the right bottom is the Havasupai campground towards the end. But the facilities are so gorgeous. And then this is we're going through Cottonwood Campground. This is about 6.5 miles down now. And the one on the left is the Ribbon Falls. It's taken with a zoom, so we weren't there because we were rushing. We had to beat the heat. And Tim Butler, my mentor, I talked to him before the trip, and he gave me a lot of good advice, and he insisted you leave early, no later than 5, and also get through the box as early as possible and get to Phantom Ranch. And so we heeded his advice, started in the dark. We didn't see much, but we don't want to be exhausted during the day, so we just rushed through it. And Ribbon Falls we just saw from the distance, and it's a sacred place for the Native Americans, and I was glad to get a glimpse of it. But you know, if you have more time, it's a wonderful place to explore. And this is called the box. I didn't know what it was, but it was the narrowest part of the canyon, and it shows the oldest part of the rocks, which is very black. So it observes heat, and it can get extremely hot like an oven if you're here at the wrong place. They recommended not go through this. Don't hike through this between 10 and 4. And mostly it was flat towards the bottom, and we're almost approaching Phantom Ranch, the famous Phantom Ranch. We left the trailhead at 4:30, and we got here at 9:30. This is about 14 miles, 13.6 to be precise.
Were you running?
No.
We were trotting.
Well, actually, Margaret just marches on, and I am there just oohing and awing and taking pictures. And if I take one picture, Margaret is 500 feet away. So yes, I was running. Yes. But up to here, we were mostly in the shade, and I didn't even wear a hat, and it was just gorgeous. The Bright Angel Creek runs through it, and you hear the water, and cross 7 bridges or so, and it was just gorgeous. And here, I had a lemonade I had to try. They said it's really refreshing, $6, but it was worth it. And you see the mailbox, and I knew that I didn't have time to write postcards leisurely, so I wrote them the night before, and those are for my family in Japan. And it has a stamp that says carried by a mule, and stamped at the Grand Canyon. I don't remember the exact word, but there's a stamp. So I made sure that my family in Japan got it, and they were delighted. And this was like walk in the park. It was so beautiful, light. We spent about 30 minutes here because we needed some rest, and now off to the river.
Kauri had to edit a lot of these slides because there was 300 slides with my rear end in them. So we were, it was a beautiful day we had. It was perfect, and there was some cloud cover, which helps a lot when it's so hot. But when we were at Phantom Ranch, it was in the low 80s, so we were delighted with that as well. We crossed over and reached the river. We're delighted to see that, and the bridges that cross for both trails. We carried along the riverside, but our stop was to be here. Pipe Creek Beach was our destination. It was just off the trail, and we wanted to definitely take our shoes off and get our feet wet, because this was the stop just before we started up.
So that bridge was called the Silver Bridge. It's just so nice. And I was delighted to finally see the Colorado River. We left Phantom Ranch about 10:30 or 10 o'clock, and reached here about 10:30. And the water, since it's flowing constantly, about 55 degrees all year round, I heard. And it was so delightful. We were, 14 miles into the hike, and we dipped our feet, and this is my Grand Canyon yeah, I was wearing this. It shows all the layers of the rocks, and this is my, we got it. I got this at the Information Center gift shop anyway. At this point, I took off my t-shirt and wore a long sleeve, thin shirt to prepare for the ascent. And we dipped our clothes into the water and we started on the ascent.
Devil's Corkscrew, up we go. You can see the picture that Kauri took of the trail when we got near the top of that. These were some of the flowers along the way. It was a beautiful trip up there. We back and forth with, I think there was 3 men that eventually we never saw again, but up we went, and we reached the first of our aid stations, what I like to call them, where we could get completely wet under the water that's available at the aid station.
So to the left, we reached the Havasupai Garden. It was formerly called Indian Gardens, but it was renamed. And that was our last major stop, and we soaked our shirts again. It works like an air conditioner when we hike. Yeah, swamp cooler. And then after that, this is the 3-mile rest house. It was 4.5 miles from the Havasupai Garden. And up we go. And this is the Bright Angel Trailhead, and we were so delighted after, it was at about 3:15, so we were moving, we did it in 10 hours, 45 minutes with plenty of rest. And okay, at the 3-mile rest house, it was 84 degrees. But later, I checked the temperature at Phantom Ranch for that day, and that was 102. But when we were there, it was 9:30 in the morning and probably in the 70s or so. It was so pleasant. So I'm glad I got the advice to get through there quickly, because I wasn't sure if I could survive that kind of heat. But it was a beautiful, beautiful day. We lucked out on the weather, and we had a great hike. Thank you very much.
So next, Frank Ernest. Most of you know here, Frank grew up in Ohio and California, worked at Mayo Clinic in Minnesota doing diagnostic radiology, married to Sarah with 3 children, joined the hiking club in 2013 and was a guide and chief guide at the hiking club and assisted many of the hiking trips that we've got. And he helped Walt Shields create the guide first aid training program and kept it up for 10 years and stepped down from guiding last year. And he's going to talk about a trip that several hikers from the club did in California a few years ago.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I cheated a little bit. I was recruited to help out and make a presentation, and I know this isn't a day hike, but I thought it was really an interesting organizational effort to kind of put this together. For those of you who don't know much about the John Muir Trail, it goes up through the Sierra Nevada range in California, kind of in the mid portion of the state. It's about 214 miles in length, and you can hike it either from the north to the south or south to the north. The easier way to do it is going from north to south, because progressively the passes you climb over get higher and higher. The total 214-mile hike has 47,000 feet of elevation gain. So it's a big hike, and every day you're kind of going over a pass. That's kind of how you organize it. This is an elevation plot at the bottom there, and it shows you all the different passes you go over and different, locales that you pass by. Those arrows that are drawn in the right there, or drawn on the top that are pointing down, are places you resupply. So it's very important. You can carry about 5, really pushing it, 6 days worth of food. You have to put it in a bear box, and that has limited capacity and so forth. You're trying to get, ideally you'd get 4,000 calories a day. It's almost impossible to carry that much for a day, so you're going to lose, it's a great diet plan. You're going to lose some weight. But we went from north to south, so those Tuolumne Meadows, Reds Meadow, Muir Trail Ranch were all resupply places, and then we had a pack horse that was going to meet us for the last resupply as we went south. The steps in the process for this trip, one is just having the idea, and I don't think it was original with me. It was probably Pete and Donna Cannon and Elizabeth were all up for this, and then we recruited Bertie Litchfield and Ray Peel, and we had this happy group that were going to apply for the lottery, which is a big deal, and I'll talk just a little bit more about that. But you have to get passes to get on the trail, not only to do the John Muir Trail from top to bottom or bottom to top, but also to go up Half Dome. And so that's something we had to do. We had to train for it. We had to equip ourselves. We had to figure out food. And then last of all, we had to figure out navigation, which wasn't really too hard. It's a pretty easily found trail, but there was a great cell phone app, even available at that time, that we could use for that purpose. There's approximately 10,000 hikers a year that do the John Muir Trail. We were lucky to get the permit that we did, starting at Happy Isles, which is up in Yosemite Valley, and then hiking south. We applied in March, and we got our, I think it's probably 30 or 60 days, you find out if you win the lottery, and if you do, they assign you a time to do the hike. And so we were September 1st to the 21st, and that was just perfect for us because it was after the busy tourist season, and also the snow melt, which had been pretty big that year, would be largely gone. At the bottom here, the next bullet point up from the bottom, 2% chance of actually getting one of these passes. And of the 7 applications, Ray Peel was the only one who got a pass for 6 people, not only to do the John Muir Trail, but to do Half Dome on the first day. So we just hit the jackpot. We figured out a rough plan for the trip, 21 days at 12 miles per day. We were debating whether to do a resupply 8-mile in and out hike at Onion Valley. We decided to get a pack horse to bring us our food, and that would save us a day on the trail. We drove up to Lone Pine. This is up in the Owens Valley. We figure out where you're going to leave your vehicle at Whitney Portal, which is at the very south terminus of the hiking trail. And then we drove up to Yosemite Valley, dropping food off at 2 places. One is we dropped it with the packer in Bishop, where the pack horse was going to take it from Onion Valley to Charlotte Lake. And then we dropped another food cache in Tuolumne Meadows, which you actually pass these bear boxes on your way down to the trailhead. And then I just basically am going to just skip over this. You have to mail the food that you're going to pick up at Reds Meadow and Muir Trail Ranch about 2 or 3 weeks in advance. And then you drop off food at the other places, either at Onion Valley or at Tuolumne Meadows. We did all that. So we were all ready to go ahead and make our trip. This was the planning of the hike. Excel is very good for that. But you have to figure out how many miles you're going to do each day and how much of an elevation gain you want to take on each day. The other thing is you don't want to sleep much above 8,000 feet. It's nice to be a little lower and in the trees when you're sleeping. It's more comfortable, and that's where the water is. It's going to be a stream or some body of water just about everywhere you go. Now this was a big deal for me, less maybe for some other people that went along, but I was very careful about what I carried because you have to carry this for 21 days, so you don't want to have too much in your pack. And one of the things I did progressively over weeks is weigh everything and then throw things out. So by the time I finished, I had a 41-pound pack when it was fully loaded with food. This was the camera I used. I know that question came up. Cowrie is a phenomenal photographer, and I think you got a taste for that. I used a Sony RX100, which is a crop sensor camera. All the camera buffs love this camera because it's very portable and takes great photos. So I was happy to have that. One of the things that I did that was kind of a new thing for me is I took a little solar panel, which I would have on the back of my pack during the day, and I would charge up a little lithium battery pack, and then at night before I went to sleep I would plug in my camera batteries and then my phone. So that's how I kept all my electronics going on the trail. This is what the bear boxes look like at Tuolumne Meadows. This little piece of tape I put on this, I did remove it however, but this was to identify where our food was out of these 20 boxes so I could find it again. Here's our group, 4 of us. I'm on the left, Ray Peel, who many of you know. I think Ray has moved, is he permanently in Santa Fe now? I think he has moved. And then Bertie Litchfield and Mike Wolter on the right. So you can see Bertie pointing to the destination. That's Half Dome, way on the upper photo on the left, that's Half Dome. You go up past on the Merced River, you kind of climb, and you have to stay the first night in a designated campground. So we stayed in Little Yosemite Valley, dropped our packs, and then basically ran over to Half Dome, up Half Dome and down, and went back to Yosemite Valley. I don't think I ever had worse cramps in my life. After doing all that climbing, and then it was hot, and we had smoke in the air because there was a little bit of a forest fire and so forth. But it was a good introduction. You can see in the bottom left, Bertie and Mike Wolter are on this rock formation called the diving board. I did not have the courage to go out there, but I was happy to take their picture. And then you can see the cables that are set up from, probably April to October, it's a cable walk where you have cables on each side, you have holes drilled into the granite where steel posts are, and then wires running on each side to kind of help you go up. And there are some 2x4s you can see right down here. At every place there are poles, so you can kind of arrest your fall. Yeah, no more needs to be said about that. But it is very steep, but it's a wonderful experience to go up there. It's kind of a bucket list thing. Day 3, this is after we had a hamburger the day before, that day at Tuolumne Meadows, got our resupply, and Lyle Creek is this beautiful creek we followed for a day and a half on our way up to Donahue Pass, which is kind of the first over 11,000 foot pass we encountered. I was surprised on all the pictures that I took, everyone's smiling. It wasn't always happy time. One of the things that's fun is that you get the first few days on the trip, it takes you a while to pack your sleeping bag and pack your food and to pack up your tent and all that. After 10 days, you are just, boom, you've got it down to a science. We had to do some laundry along the way. You can see Bertie is drying some of hers out. You had to air out your packs. You can see the bear box right down there, this blue canister in the middle on the bottom. So you had to get organized, but the group did super well. You didn't have to take water too far. You could find water and purify it. I actually had a carbon filter pump type filter that I got rid of in Muir Trail Ranch because the water doesn't need to be filtered, it just needs to be sterilized. So I used Aquamira drops after that. That's all I needed. And that got rid of about a pound. This is one of the beautiful views. This is a 1,000-island lake, and in the back, Banner Peak. And I mean, you see these vistas all the time, everywhere you go. It's just so dramatic and so beautiful, unbelievable. We were early birds. You get up early, so you see these gorgeous sights where you've got sun just breaking on these peaks and so forth. It's just totally amazing. Water crossings, you can see Bertie here. You have to take water shoes. Hiking poles are a must, although I broke one of my poles, so I was down to one. We had to cross some snow fields, but this is in September, first week and a half of September, so there's still snow across the trail, and you have to post hole in this because it's, you know, pretty much trampled down with other people, but have to put marks in the snow. It's not particularly scary, but if you go up early in the morning and you're on one of these snow fields, it's pretty icy, and if you fell, you'd slide a ways. And they have this watermelon snow. I don't know if you've seen this up in the Alps or up in high mountain ranges, but there's actually a type of unicellular algae that is actually green under the microscope, but it produces red pigment when it's exposed to solar radiation. So you see this kind of pink discolored snow everywhere you go. This is one of the highlight structures on the trail on day 12, Muir Pass, which is about 12,000 feet. This hut was built in the early 30s, and when we went in there, we encountered 4 other young hikers that were just completely lit out of their minds. The smoke was just wafting out the door. We didn't stay in there long because we thought we would fall asleep. And we had one day where, this is right after we got over the pass, we went down, we had a little front come through, a little rain, but everyone's still smiling. We had our little rain jackets on. This is after Mather Pass, where you're kind of above the tree line most of the time. So it's really kind of a barren moonscape in a way, but totally gorgeous. Ray Lakes, Glen Pass. So we get down to Charlotte Lake, and we're waiting for our resupply. So sure enough, this guy shows up. He's out of a Western movie. And he's got this horse that's got our stuff on it. And unfortunately, it did not have our stuff on it. It had somebody else's. I think he had a rough Saturday night. This was actually a Sunday, and he brought food for people on Monday. And so we didn't have any food. We were totally out. So we had to exit hike over Kearsarge Pass down to Onion Valley, which is an 8-mile hike with no food. We could still do it. But we got down there. His car was broken down. He couldn't get us down to Independence because we needed to buy an extra day and a half or 2 days of food because we lost that time. Anyway, it became a comedy of errors, and it took us a long time to get down, and I ended up stopping the hike there. Now, Bertie and Ray Peel went back months later to finish the last segment. But I had already done Mount Whitney, and so I did miss Forester Pass and so forth. What was a shame is that we could have used the bear boxes at Onion Valley, added a day to the hike, and not depended on somebody else. But you live and learn. I want to dedicate this, of course, to my good hike mates, Bertie, Mike, and Ray, and also to a very important person to me. Dr. Henry Nakata was my biochemistry professor at UCSB. I grew up in a family that did not know what a tent was. And I ended up going on a hike that Henry led me on up to Mount Whitney summit when I was between my junior and senior year of college. And that was my first introduction to hiking. And so I thank Henry for that introduction. Thank you. Any questions at all?
Yeah.
Yes?
Did you encounter any wildlife on this?
Yes, mostly two-legged. But we did see one young bear the first day scampering up the mountainside. But we went to all these great steps to prevent bears from getting into our tents. We never saw another bear the whole time. But you would see hawks and different bird life and so forth. But we never encountered anything scary. Thank you very much.
Okay, Brian Hooker is from Colorado, and he is a photographer and also has a background in optical science and has done a lot of black and white and color photography. That's how I know him. And he's traveled extensively in Greece, has given numerous talks on the Greek islands, and today is going to give an overview of 3 hikes in different Greek islands. And maybe you think about going there, huh?
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for the good intro. Yeah, I'm going to talk today about Greece. This is going to be sort of a Whitman's sampler. Not a whole lot, but 3 hikes. And why would anybody ever want to go to Greece? That's a long ways away. Here's some of the reasons. As a photographer, the top 2 are important to me. Sea and mountains are incredibly scenic. You can probably find some things up there that would appeal to you as well. One of the interesting things about hiking these hikes I'm going to show you is that they're good, solid hikes, but they're not expeditions. You don't have to go and have a guide. You can do it yourself. It's for the independent traveler. Okay, so where is Greece? Let's start off with basics. It's down here in the circle area, and Greece has 170 inhabited islands, and many of them are in the Aegean Sea. And this is the Aegean Sea, and there's 6 islands there that are labeled. Those are probably our favorite 6. Altogether, we've been to about 32 islands in Greece. These are the ones that we've said, these are the ones we really like. We're going to go to 3 of these today. And how do we get there? Well, we fly into Athens up in the upper left there and hop on a ferry. And the nice thing about Greece is they have this wonderful ferry system, which in itself is the reason to go to Greece. You get to travel around, you get off the ferry, and you can walk to a bus and go to your studio apartment. You don't have to get a rent-a-car necessarily. They have big boats, medium-sized boats, and little boats, sort of like the 3 Bears. You can pick the kind you like, and they're all fun to go on. Okay, first we're going to go to Crete. Now, Crete is the largest island in Greece. You will need to rent a car here. The northern shore has a lot of package tours. The southern shore is more for the independent traveler and for hikers. So we're going to go into Heraklion in the northern shore. You see the arrow coming in there. That's the ferry. Comes into Heraklion. We're going to get a rent-a-car and drive over to Sugia on the southwest shore. Along the way, we might see some ruins. Hey, we're going to hike, but we're also going to do some other stuff as well. One of the interesting things is that there's one area called Kenosis, and if you go there, you see that the British put it all back together. They said, what was this like when the Greeks were here? And this was their guess. Is that true? Not sure. But the interesting thing I found was that, indeed, columns were not just these alabaster white colors. They were colored, and they found that in many cases. And then if you're so inclined, you can also go and do what a lot of people there do, which is hang out on the beach. But today we're going to go down to Sugia in the lower left, and you'll see there's 3 dotted line areas there indicating gorge hikes. We're going to take the one on the right. This is the Samaria Gorge. 10 miles long from the top to the bottom, and it's a 4,100-foot descent. 4,100 feet. That'll get your knees a-knocking. You know, it's not quite like the Grand Canyon, but almost. And then once one does this hike and gets down to the bottom, one's going to take a boat back to Sugia. So it's a round trip. We're going to take a bus from Sugia on the left, up that road to the top of the gorge, leaves at 7 in the morning, takes about an hour to get up there. We're going to spend all day hiking down, and then we're going to catch the 4:30 boat at the bottom that takes us back to Sugia. The next day, we can go and do some more hikes. So let's see what this looks like. This is the top of the gorge. Okay, it's very pleasant. You know, there's lots of trees. Descending into the gorge gives you a hint of what you might expect. It's a bit rocky at the bottom, but it's sort of civilized coming down these stairs. You don't have to use ropes and things like that. At the bottom, you do find there's people. This is not what you would call a wilderness hike. 800 plus people a day hike this through the summer. And on some days, in the middle of the summer, the high season, 3,000 people will hike it a day. But it's 10 miles long, and they're sort of spread out, and they're all sort of having an adventure, so it's not that bad. June was when we did it, and the crowds were not that bad at all. So this is the bottom of the canyon. You get the sense it's rocky. You get the sense also you don't want to be there when there's a flood. Winter rains come, and they actually close the canyon from November to April because of the danger of flooding, and even worse, rock falls when you get down into the narrow part of the canyon. So it's very spectacular. There's one place there, I think they call it Devil's Gate or something like that, where the cliffs are 12 feet apart and 1,000 feet tall. It's very dramatic, very dramatic. You can see the wall there on the right also is polished from all the water and rock material that's rubbed against it during high water. And as you come down, you can sort of see there in the distance, it looks like maybe you're going to get out of this place. And after 10 miles you do, and you get out into the town of Agia Romelli, which has lots of tavernas and supermarkets, Johnny's supermarket there, and it has a beach. And this is what the town looks like with the Samaria Gorge coming down from the side. Note that the town is put conveniently off to the side so it doesn't get washed away in the floods. And then you catch a boat, and the boat will take you back to Sugio. So it's a good round trip. It's a fun day trip. It's a classic. Okay, we're now going to go up to an island of Amorgos. Amorgos is largely an undiscovered island, or at least it has been. It's mountainous, about 18 miles long, with only 2,000 people. So as where Crete had 600,000 people, 600,000, this island only has 2,000. But it has wonderful beaches, and it has lots of little towns, and it has wonderful hiking trails. Now the point of this photo is to show you that in the spring, there's lots of flowers. It's wonderful. But in the fall, when everything goes sort of brown because of lack of water, the sea waters are warmer. It's better for swimming. So if you want to have good swimming conditions, you go in the fall. If you want to have pretty flowers, obviously go in the spring. The hike we're going to take is what I call the spine hike. I couldn't find a name for it. It's 10 miles long with a 2,300 foot elevation gain. You basically take your ferry into the upper port, upper right, hop off in that village, and then you hike down 10 miles along the dotted line. It goes along the spine of Amorgos. And then you exit the island from the port in the lower part. You say, well, you're going to carry all your luggage? Hey, we don't suffer. We hire a cab that takes the luggage down, and we just do the walk with day packs. And it actually worked out. Our luggage actually got down from town A to town B. Along the way, down at the bottom there, you can't quite see it, there's this wonderful beach about a mile before the end of the hike, which I'd highly recommend to anybody who ever does this thing. It's just wonderful. So we start off here, and this is the village where we start off. It has places to stay, tavernas. This is the port where the ship drops you off. And we're going to hike up over the mountain up in the upper right. Along the way, there's going to be lots of Greek Orthodox chapels. They're everywhere, very scenic. The trail is well marked. And if you want to practice your transcriptions from Greek alphabet, you'll have opportunities to do that. The one on the top is where you came from, and the one on the bottom is where you're going. So that's easy to remember. Everywhere it's blue, the sky, the sea, it's absolutely gorgeous. In fact, there was a movie a couple of decades ago called The Big Blue. Has anybody seen that? Do you remember that? Okay. It was one of these sort of romantic stories about Greece, boy and girl meet, and it was filmed on Amorgos. The trail is rocky. It's not smooth through here. And you can see there's lots of signs that agriculture has been here in the past and also in the present. You'll see people with their cows. The donkey is the beast of burden. There's a lot of people who use these to actually carry their supplies around. And goats are everywhere. And to hear the bleating of goats in the distance is just a part of hiking in Greece. And they're particularly common on Amorgos. There'll be nothing out there, nobody, no people, but just bleating goats. And one of the problems is that the goats eat the stuff they plant in the fields, so they want to keep the goats out of the fields. And this is how they do it. We call this hexagonal bush. Don't know what the name is, but it has prickers that are they're nasty. And what they do is put this on top of walls, and when it dries, the goats can't get over it without suffering severe pain. They basically stay caged in. So there's lots of signs of agriculture from the past. About 2/3 of the way along this hike, there's this church. It seems sort of weird out in the middle of nowhere, but it's actually used, and the church looks from this angle sort of like a big birthday cake that's been frosted. From the other angle, it looks more like a church. So we stop here for a lunch break. And then we continue on. And as you come down this, the wall of this side of the mountain, you'll see there's a little sliver of white there. And that's going to be a building, a monastery. And way in the distance, down by that little island, there's a beach. And that's where we're going to swim after we look at the monastery. So this is the monastery. It's probably 6 or 7 stories tall. It's quite old, as you can see, 9th century. And it's still occupied. They still do their services there. And if you're properly attired, which in the case of most people means you have to wear something that covers your legs, your knees, you can go in there. And down at the beach I've been telling you so much about, this is looking back at the monastery. And if you look carefully to the right of the monastery up in the hill, you can see the trail that we took coming down. We saw nobody on this trail. We were totally by ourselves, unlike the Samaria Gorge Trail. We now go from our beach over the hill to the Amorgos town, which is Hora up in the mountains, the main town, where the driver hopefully took our baggage, and he did, so it worked out. And then the next day we go over the edge of the plateau there and down to the port and head up to Naxos. This is the 3rd and last island. Naxos is probably our favorite island in Greece. It's a large island. It's 20 miles long with a mountain range going north to south, as you can see there. It has about 18,000 people on it. And what it's noted for is being very fertile. It has lots of sources of water, a big agricultural base, a lot of marble. A lot of the marble that made statues that were distributed around Greece came from here. And also, most importantly, a fishing port. They have fantastic food here. The main town of Naxos town is the port, is also on a little hill there off to the left. And this was once a Venetian citadel kind of thing. And the Venetian buildings are still there. It's very interesting to go through. This structure out here is the entrance to what was the temple for Dionysus back several thousand years ago. And they say it's been like that for several thousand years, and they've removed all of the blocks from the rest of the temple to build other buildings in the area. Don't know if that's true, but that's the local story. When you go back in the hills, you'll find that it's much more relaxed. Again, the beast of burden and the guy hauling his stuff with it. And it's a whole different kind of lifestyle back there. There's actually a nightlife in Naxos town, and nightlife ends here at about sunset. But what we're going to do is we're going to hike up Mount Zas. Now, in Greek, Zas means Zeus, as in their god Zeus. Okay, so this is where, from their perspective, a long time ago, God lived, which is sort of intriguing. You take the bus up to the town of Faloti in the upper part of the map there, and you do a counterclockwise hike around the dotted line. It's 5 miles, and you do about 2,100 square feet. Mount Zas is 3,400 feet tall, so you're starting about not quite halfway up. It's the tallest mountain in this island range. So anyhow, I'm not sure if you can see it there, but towards the bottom it says the Cave of Zas, and that's where Zas lived or lives by legend. And we didn't see him, but it was sure beautiful there, so maybe he was there. And we climbed up to the top of the mountain and then went down the other side on the right side of the map through a town called Agia Marina back to Faloti. This is Zas in the springtime. We've been up there 4 or 5 times on different routes. And as you can see, it's very green, which is typical for Greece in the spring. The spring here being May. Spring in the fall is a different situation. It's much less green. There is some. We're going up here in this is a quiz. Is this the spring or the fall? It's the fall, right? Yeah. And you can see there's a couple of little cairns there. So the markings they're there, but the path is hardly overused. So there's not that many people taking this particular trail up. As I said, there's 3 trails going up. Up towards the top, you get above timberline, or bush line, I guess I should say, and climb over this stuff. At the top, you can sign into the registry. When we were up there, you always sit down, of course, and have your sandwich or whatever. And we saw 6 or 8 people one time trudging up, after we had settled in and we were comfortable having nobody there, and these 6 or 8 people trudge up, and they're all wearing what looks like REI clothing, And you can tell the difference because European hiking clothing is different than American hiking clothing. And we get to talking with them, and it turns out they're on an REI tour. And they're paying $500 a day to do this. And so you can do it a couple of ways. You can do it on your own if you feel comfortable with that, or if you don't, go to REI and pay $500 a day. Okay, we're now going to come down, and in the distance there you can see Paros Island, which is another big island, which is interesting, but not so much for hiking. And as you descend, things get greener. You start to see signs of agriculture, and you get flowers in the spring. Again, you get to practice your Greek characters. We're going to Agia Marina on the bottom there. Everywhere you see chapels on top of hilltops. Never saw anybody in the chapels, but often they were open and you could go in. Now we're going back into the town of Faloti, where you can get lunch. They also make their own special liqueur there, and they have stills where you can go and watch them make it and take a bottle of it back home. It's some people like it. 2 points. Number 1, residents in Greece are very friendly, and they welcome you. They like to talk with you, particularly in May. By September, at the end of the season, less so, because they're getting burned out. And there's lots of antiquities to see, everything from stuff in Venetian times to back in Greek times. And this is one that I particularly like because we were hiking and we were in the middle of nowhere. It was a little chapel, and I went inside and I said, "What's that on the wall?" And you put a headlamp on it and you say, "My golly, look at that. That stuff has been preserved all these years." Obviously, water had not dripped in through the structure. Okay, so what are the resources that you need to hike in Greece? Well, you got to figure out where you're going. And All Trails app has all of these 3 hikes I just showed you on it. But you also certainly want to have a topo map as well. You can get that from mountains.gr, okay, and they have them for all of the islands as well as much of the mainland. And this is sort of my cheat sheet that I put together for you all. If you take a picture of that, if you're interested, and if you don't want to take a picture, I've got some over here. But this shows 11 hikes on these 6 different islands that we've taken. And in my expanded version of this talk, we talk about all of those. And at the bottom, it lists a bunch of other islands, 7 additional islands, where the hiking is only good, not spectacular, okay? On the right, it lists how you get around with ferries. Go to ferries.gr, and that's the Greek ferry system. That's key, because that's how you figure out where you're going to go and when. And the guidebooks we use are listed there. My email is down there in the lower right if you want to get any more information from me, and if you want to see more pictures of Greece or whatever, my website's down at the bottom. So, any questions? What was the temperature like in the spring? The days were in the 70s in May. Perfect. It was really nice. And in September, it actually gets windy. They have a wind called the Meltemi, which comes down from the north and kicks up the sea. So not only does the temperature hotter, but you get this wind that can stop the boats from running, which could be a problem. Yes, you had.
So you're recommending May and June?
I would recommend, yes, May and June. August is the time, July and August is really the busy season there. I would not recommend that. Okay, thank you.
Linda and I did a hike in Colorado last year, which was a very nice hike. Unfortunately, we didn't get to finish the hike, so what you're going to get is half a mile short of the end of the hike. This is in northern Colorado, west of Fort Collins, and in the little space that's between Rocky Mountain State Park and what's called the State Forest State Park. That's near the Colorado-Wyoming border. You kind of see here in the lower part is the Never Summer mountain range, which is kind of matches up with Rocky Mountain National Park. And then the Medicine Bow mountain range comes down from Wyoming, and they meet at the place that's called Cameron Pass, which is where the trailhead is, near the Colorado headwaters on one side, on the other side going to the Poudre River towards Fort Collins, and then down from Cameron Pass to what's called North Park. And what I like talking about is history and geography. And this area was right smack in the middle of 2 huge forest fires just a few years ago. This was the one that was very close to where their trailhead was called the Cameron Peak fire, and it was the second largest. Well, it became the largest fire in the state, and then the second largest fire was the East Troublesome fire, almost merged with it, and right in the middle is where this trail is. So this is a map of the trail, and if you want to do this, go up to Colorado and see this area. You can actually start the trail in 4 different places. Where we started was from the campground where we camped. But you can also start at number 1. You would add several miles to it. So here we go. We're starting from camp, and we're starting from the Craig's campground. It's in 4 segments. And one of the major geographic features here is what's called Michigan Ditch. And it is kind of an interesting thing, channeling my interest in water. It brings water from the west side of the Continental Divide across the Continental Divide on this ditch, and it goes to the eastern side of the Continental Divide. we'll see some places in the photos where it actually crosses. First segment is from the campground to the what I call the Crags Overlook. It's 2.5 miles and about 1,100 feet of gain. And this is what we see. Anyway, that's the look of at the crags from the overlook. So climbing up from the campground. Okay, so we go around the corner and to the other side of the mountain and start going into the valley, which is the Michigan Creek Valley. And it's going to the place they call American Lakes, and we're headed towards Snow Lake. And that's what that looks like. I don't know why my
Blue is there.
yeah, it looks like that's a cell phone picture that didn't get. This is what the valley looks like. Oh, I'm disappointed in my pictures showing on the big screen. So here's Linda thinking, well, what we need to do is climb this escarpment from the lake up to Snow Lake. It's only about a half a mile to do that. And we start up the hill and I develop a stomach problem that causes us to turn around and go back down the hill. So we never made it to the end. And here we are in the third segment, headed back down the hill. And the fourth segment now from Michigan Ditch back to the campground. I like taking pictures of mushrooms. And that's the money shot that didn't turn out. Yeah.
How long was the total hike?
Let's see, I think it was, what did I say in there? About 9 miles, 8.5, 9 miles. Yeah. And just under 1,500 feet total elevation. Okay, that's it.